Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
We are very excited to have Tampa's own, but I also hear Pittsburgh transplant now, Jacob Halusic. Do you go by Jake?
I go by Jake.
Amazing. Yeah. Okay. The man behind the cloud company of the future, Trofeo. We are very, very excited to hear a little bit of behind the scenes, hear your story, how you got to where you're going, how you got so good at pickleball. Another of my many
the important
pickleball
questions.
Yeah.
I don't know about that.
That's
debatable.
Yeah, I understand. I don't need you blowing up my reputation either, so we'll just breeze right over that one. What I do want to talk about, though, is a pretty diverse and incredibly decorated experience and career, and now your latest venture. So we always like to open with just like a fun, quirky icebreaker. And we know that you are in tech, AI, cloud. So the obvious question here is, if you were yourself a chatbot, what's the one question that you would nail, and what's the one question that you would fumble?
Love it. Well, first of all, thank you guys so much for having me. I'm excited to be on. That is a good one. I think one question I would nail, I'm a huge foodie. I love going out to eat. So I think if you ask the chatbot what to order at a certain restaurant, it would definitely nail it.
That's super helpful.
What it would not nail. I do not like putting stuff together. So like a piece of furniture comes and it's got to be put together. My wife is doing it. Like I just don't have the patience for it. So do not ask it that.
That's amazing. Okay. So we need like an IKEA chatbot plugin.
There you go.
Yes.
Yes. And if it could even do it, that would be better.
Right. Comes out.
We need a little robotic AI.
Yeah. I think we're onto something, actually.
There we go.
Yeah. This is a whole other business idea.
Tech startups coming out of the podcast.
There we go.
Okay, so I'm super curious. First off, congrats. Recently, 40 Under 40 nominee.
Thank you.
You've established and done a lot in, I feel like, what is a short amount of time. Obviously, in AI and tech years, so it probably feels like forever. But walk us through, like, you've had your company almost 2 years, is that right?
Yeah, about 18 months.
Okay, fantastic. We haven't even crossed the 2-year threshold.
So we're getting there.
Okay. Take us back to like the moment in time, though. The decision, where were you? What were you doing that you decided, okay, there's a gap in the market. I have a solution. Let's do this.
Yeah, so there was definitely a build up to it, but I'll keep it short. So
Well, we've got 17 more
I know you're going to
minutes,
keep me honest here. No, I always wanted to own my own company. I majored in entrepreneurship at the University of Tampa, so I knew I was going to do it. I wrote 3 business plans while I was there. Cool. It's actually how I ended up in tech. Even during my career, I started a couple side businesses and broke even on them, learned a lot. So over starting those couple different things, I realized, like, you know what? I don't need to reinvent the wheel. I just need to do what I know and what I'm good at. And I had been in technology for about 16 years, been through a couple different exits. There were 2 things that I realized. One, I wanted to rebuild the culture where I started, which was at TriBridge. And there was just something special about that culture. Everybody wanted to be a part of it. It felt like home for a lot of people. People still talk about it today. If TriBridge was still here, they would go back and work there. So I was like, I want to build that. And we won't be TriBridge, but I want to build that culture where people have that thought about it. So that was number one. I think number 2 was, I was driving a lot of revenue for these companies in a sales position. I was a big part of the growth. I got a little piece of the pie. And I think after doing that a couple of times, you're like, okay, I got to go do this for myself. And so that was really the leap where I was like, okay, it's time to bite the bullet and do it. Yeah. And I just knew, I was talking to my wife, I'm like, if I don't do this now, I'm going to look back in 10 years and say, woulda, shoulda, coulda. So it was the right time to bite it off.
Yeah.
I love that you layered culture and like striving for rebuilding something that you like really enjoyed above like the obvious payoff and like what most people move on or out of an industry that they've been in for a long time to start a business, which is like the money part. I think that sometimes just like falls behind on so many people's intentions, and like that's such a cool special thing to like really ignite like the passion.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm huge on culture, and I think if you focus on the right things for the right reason, the the other part of it will come, right? But if you go for the other part first, you miss out on doing all the right things, and I think people get lost.
Yeah. And culture, unlike maybe some other KPIs that are sort of hard lines in the sand or financial goals you have to go after, it's a lot more ubiquitous. Talk to us a little bit about what were those cultural pieces that you wanted to recreate, and what are the ways maybe that you've been able to do that?
Yeah, definitely. The biggest one was having an entrepreneurial culture. We interview for that. Our interview process is, do you have the right skill sets to do the job, but are you a culture fit? And if you're looking for that structure where you're going to come in and we're going to tell you, hey, you're going to work 9 to 5 and do A, B, C, and D, not the right place for you.
Right.
We want you to solve problems. We want you to be creative. We want you to raise ideas up to us on how to do things better. At the end of the day, our consultants are the ones in front of the customer. So they're hearing firsthand what needs done.
Yeah.
So trying to do a top-down organization and me telling them, hey, we have to do it this way, just makes zero sense. So being entrepreneurial was the number one thing, and it's really played out for us over the first year. We definitely got the right team. We built some cool solutions because of it. So I think instilling that was my number one priority, and we hit the mark with that. And I think we just measure it through the results. To your point, there's no exact KPI to measure it. In fact, I would say it probably detracts a little bit if you look at the financials verbatim, because you invest in building a culture, right? But at the end of the day, it pays off tenfold, and that's what we want to see.
I mean, I think that you have to be brave to give your people the leash and the autonomy and the authority to go out there and just not just practice an entrepreneurial spirit, but make decisions.
Yeah.
Right? When you're not in the room.
Right. Exactly.
So has that ever, have people made decisions that you would have not made yourself that turned out good?
Yeah, it's
because we could probably do it the other way too.
You could. No, but you know what? It's great. You have to go the other way because you have to learn from those, right?
Yeah.
And when you have to let people fail so they can learn. If you try and control everything, you'll never grow. And I see that in a lot of companies. I would say the biggest one that came out of our entrepreneurial culture and letting people make decisions. Last year, we released our managed security solution, and we became a full managed security service provider. Going into starting Trofeo, I never pictured us being that, but our consultants were getting asked for it by customers. They were out there in the market. They were seeing a big gap, and they brought it back. And, we discussed it. Within a couple months, we had built our solution, decided we're going to go to market. It was a big investment for us, but it was the right one, and it's paid off. So that
awesome.
That was one big outcome of the entrepreneurial culture.
Yeah, that's
so cool.
Yeah.
I love the agility that you give, that your company has, just based off of that as a main culture point, because you have the opportunity to make a full pivot into something that ends up a huge part of your revenue.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's what I tell people when they join. I said, run this like your own little company. What you're in charge of, your division, run it like it's yours. Yeah. That's how I want them to act. And
it gives people that level of investment when they have something that they can, all right, side project. Don't let it affect all your main responsibilities, but allow them to side project on an idea that could then be a bigger piece of the company's, services, revenue.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then it helps them be invested in the company, right? Because now they were a part of the growth. They were part of that decision making, which is really cool to see.
Mm-hmm.
Love that.
I feel like, tech and AI, the speed we're moving to, you've got to have people that represent the company who are able to think on their feet and can, make those decisions in real time. Otherwise, you're just falling behind, right? So can you talk a little bit about sort of the direction of the company and how you've landed where you are, at least today? We could walk out of here and things change, but has it been trying to fill a gap? Has it been more direction, focus, and this is where we're headed? I imagine probably a combination of the two, but how do you stay at pace, really?
Yeah, the biggest thing is being agile. You have to be. You never have the perfect plan. I was humbled quickly with that going into launching Trofeo.
Okay.
I thought I knew exactly where we're heading. This is what we're going to do. But we did see a couple things. We saw a gap in the market. We saw a pivot to a focus on infrastructure, security, and data and AI. And to your point, AI is moving super fast.
Mm-hmm.
And I talked to some folks at Microsoft. We're 100% aligned to Microsoft. We're a Microsoft partner.
Yeah.
And even their, top 3 things were those categories, right? And I was like, okay, we're pivoting to this direction. And then we saw a gap in the mid-market where companies who were focused on those 3 areas were tackling the enterprise space. They wanted the really large customers, and they were avoiding the mid-market, or they just weren't priced right for the mid-market. Mm-hmm. And so I think it was a combination of those 2 things. 1, the services, 2, an underserved mid-market. And we put that together and are, a mid-market service firm focused on data and AI, security and infrastructure. And that was the gap we saw, and that's, the gap we're going after.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. I feel like a lot of people get hung up in trying not to define who they are. So good on you, especially in a world right now. I feel like by the second, people are flooding the market with solutions. So how have you found like trying to differentiate? Obviously, we're marketers, right? So my brain right away goes to like the name, the colors, the positioning. How are you going to tell your story? And sneak preview, we got a little bit of, you explaining where your mind was at. So now I'm like, ooh, tell us more. How are you differentiating?
Yeah. So I think a couple things. 1, we went into it and said, we're not going to be a jack of all trade. We're going to be a master of the trade. That's really hard to do when you're starting up. And I think that's where a lot of startups veer off track because it's like, ooh, there's revenue over here. I'm going to go chase it. And, I'll get some contractors. I'll say we do it. We said no more than we said yes in the startup days. And it was tough, but we gained a lot of respect for that. It allowed us to hire in the areas we knew we were going to concentrate. So we had really skilled experts in the areas we were focused. As far as Trofeo, you mentioned a little bit about the colors, the branding. You may have heard some of my other podcasts, but it's really hard to name a company, as you know, being in marketing. Yeah. And I was shocked. I was literally combining words, making it up, and I would put the domain in, and I'm like, how is this taken?
Right. Who has spicedapplepumpkincake.com?
It's just crazy. So, and then you ask them, they're like, well, they'll sell it to you for $10,000. I'm like, yeah, no. So we came up with Trofeo. So I started looking at, alternative words, and Trofeo was one that really resonated for a couple reasons. One, it means trophy. But if you look at it, it stands for high performance. It stands for winning. I'm a big car guy. Maserati has their Trofeo brand, which is the high-end performance. Nice. And so when I thought about the company, I'm like, man, we want high-performing consultants that deliver winning solutions for our customers that then allow them to go to market and win. And so just all of that coming together, the word just felt right and really embodied it. And then as we got it to market, it was funny because when we launched, some people were like, oh, I don't know, that's tough to say. Is it going to resonate? But we had so many people asking questions like, man, that is a really cool name. Yeah. How'd you come up with it? So I think it generated more hype, which was pretty cool to see.
Yeah.
It for me, it fits right in that like perfect level of uniqueness where it's like not impossible to say. It's not super long, but it's interesting. You want to know more. You want to know, is it a word in a different language? Like, what does it mean? Like, where does it come from? And that's like that's the perfect level of like questions to intro people to the brand and get people thinking and learning more about you. So
I love that. Cool. And it could have went one way or the other, but it ended up, drawing that attention, which is great.
Yeah. Love it. I know. Otherwise we'd be talking about rebranding. I want to pivot for a second because I feel like prior to starting your company, you had some really interesting experiences, some of which you've already talked about, a couple exits, some interaction with private equity, and I have to imagine there's probably some learnings that you have carried forward into that. So question is really one lesson about private equity that founders rarely hear until they're too deep into it. Like, what would be your sort of warning stories?
I love that question. I think it's picking the right partner. I think a lot of people, when they go through a transaction, they see the dollars and they're like, oh, the best deal for me is the highest dollar amount. And that's not true at all. When you're going for private equity, you're going to continue to grow to the next level. And so it's picking the right partner that shares your vision, that's going to work with you, that's not going to be top down and tell you how to run things. They're buying into your company because you're doing something right. They just want to elevate you to the next level. And so my caution and what I hear all the time is they pick the highest dollar, they're far into it, and they're like, man, I'd never do this again. It's the worst partnership, right? Yeah. And so what I caution people is pick who you can work with, because they're going to be your business partners moving forward. So that's really what you need to look for when you're looking for private equity partners.
Great piece of advice.
Yeah.
You know, and just generally in business is like the highest bidder isn't always the best partner.
100%.
Yeah, we feel that. I would love to understand too, because like as it relates to partnerships, you guys have aligned with Microsoft. Can you speak to like how that sort of alliance story was formed? What were the decisions going into that? And if there's anything you can share about that now as CEO?
100%.
Okay.
So again, I'm going to go back, but I'll keep it short.
I love it.
So when I started at TriBridge, that was my first sales job. I knew if I was going to own my own company, I had to learn sales. I did not think I'd be in tech, being completely honest. If the internet goes out of the house, like my wife fixes it. Like I'm not a technical person. I love relationships. I love sales. Now I know enough to be dangerous.
Where did you think? What industry did you think you were going to end up in?
At the time I was interviewing for medical device. I thought I would go into that space. I had some friends in it, and that's actually I was interviewing, and I got the opportunity in tech, and I took it. But I struggled at first. I was trying to figure it out, and I was going through hey, we're going to get all these marketing leads. You're just going to close them. What I found is cold leads are not that easy to close, right?
Shocker!
So
breaking news, bulletin.
Right. So
Jake has cracked the code.
That's it. Yeah, me right out of school trying to figure it out. So actually, I got put on what's called a PIP, performance improvement plan. I was like 1 year in. I'm trying to figure it out, and I had like 6 months to get it. And I read a book called The Go-Giver that was all about servant leadership and just connecting people for the right reasons and doing the right thing. And I didn't have a ton of my own customers at the time, but I had built a network and a ton of connections. And I just started introducing people. I was helping people's kids get internships with connections I had. And it all came full circle. I started getting all these leads. They were warm leads, and I was closing deals. And, the next 6 years at TriBridge, I was one of the top reps in the company. 95% of the deals closed were all from referrals and alliances.
Wow.
And so I've carried that.
I know, right?
Carried that momentum through, and just that strategy through. And it's just doing things for the right reasons, and it comes full circle at the end of the day.
Love that book. Great strategy. Especially like now more than ever. I think, before we started filming, we were just chatting briefly about how people's style of selling, but also wanting to be sold to, has changed, so dramatically. I want to ask a pointed question. Hopefully there's a interesting answer here. What's the most unconventional way that you've ever been able to close a deal? Do you have any good stories for us?
I have a couple.
Okay, I love this.
One was actually on an airplane. I was going down to South Florida just for business, and I was sitting next to a guy, and I heard him talking on the phone. So I knew his position. I knew, exactly. I knew he was in IT, and he fired up his laptop, and I saw the background screen and who he was with or whatever. Yeah. So started talking to him, and I was able to get a meeting set with him. Like a couple weeks later, we ran the deal process. We ended up closing a deal with them. So that was was a really cool one.
That's great.
That's probably my best story, I'd say. The other one that's just kind of laughable and funny is I was closing a deal. And had dinner with the client, and we get to the end, and he was like, "Do you want to have dessert?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'll do dessert." Mm-hmm. His idea of dessert was sharing a dessert, and so that was very interesting. I was like, "Okay, we'll close the deal, and I'll share the piece of cake." So
that's awesome.
That's probably the funniest story I've had in sales.
Yeah.
It caught me totally off guard.
How cute! You shared a dessert.
That's great.
I mean, for the girlies, we're like, that makes sense, but like, I don't feel like men are out here sharing desserts.
It caught me a little off guard. I was like, I thought we'd get our own, but all right.
You come home and your wife's like, "How'd it go?" Like, well, but we shared dessert.
Yeah, it's a true partnership.
Yes.
That's fantastic. So we know that you've earned quite a few recognition, Emerging Tech Company of the Year finalist, 40 Under 40. Can you just tell us briefly, like, what was the moment in the last year that is, stands out, like memorable, where you feel like, okay, we're making some progress?
Yeah, definitely. It actually wasn't either of those. I mean, the recognition's awesome. I think one of our employees bought a house this year, and I had to take the verification call from the bank for income and all that. And I don't know what it was, but that moment struck me as like, all right, we are building something awesome here and
love
you know,
that.
providing for people. And that just, it felt really good. So
Yeah.
that was the moment over the past 18 months that struck me the most.
That's fantastic.
That's so cool. That's like, I feel like that's such a great answer to
Christian's gonna
encourage.
cry.
Yeah, I literally am.
Yeah,
I love stuff like that. Like it really like that's my goal. Like I've always wanted to like help people find a way, put them in better positions. Like, and that is exactly what I would want to hear from a leader in my company, or you know, and like when Brittany does really cool stuff and gives back, like that's the stuff that like jazzes me up to like, all right, we got to keep pushing so we can do more of that stuff.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
We shared stories here too. We were able to promote Christian this year to agency director.
That's awesome. Congratulations.
had
Thank
his
you.
first baby
This is about you,
and-
not me.
I love it though. No, that's awesome.
Yeah, but like I'm crying, he's crying, everyone's crying. We're like, this is so cool.
It is. It's those little moments that nobody sees that I
Yeah.
think are really special.
Overtime, here we go.
Overtime. Okay. Fantastic answers. We do have a rapid fire section. So I'm just going to hit you with some hot takes.
All right, let's do it.
All right. What's one word to describe Trofeo?
Entrepreneurial.
Love it. Most underrated skill in tech sales?
Understanding the business challenges and business outcomes.
Outcomes. Big one. What's your coffee order before a big pitch?
Medium black iced coffee with a shot of espresso.
Delicious.
Ooh, okay.
Delicious. What's one tech trend that excites you and one that makes you nervous?
I would say the speed at what it's moving. I'm super excited to see it. At the same time, we have to be agile, stay ahead of it, and keep up with it so we can service our clients.
Love it. Final question. One piece of advice for someone trying to break into cloud or AI consulting?
I would say be able to explain and connect the technology with the business. The technology alone is not going to solve problems.
Yeah.
So you really got to understand what are the challenges you're striving to solve.
What does it mean?
So
Yeah,
what's
and
it-
that's got to be so important, like mid-market, because you're dealing with people who probably scaled pretty fast, started their own businesses. They might not have those like skill sets. Like,
Yeah, well, and a lot of times you're talking to a CFO or a CEO,
Yeah.
right? And they don't care about the acronyms or the technology. They have a problem they want it solved,
Yeah.
and so how are you going to do that? You can figure all that out on the back end,
Right.
but it's really important to talk in business terms.
Yeah.
so
As
cool.
always, never enough time.
Yeah,
have
I
20
could do this for another
questions.
hour. Yeah.
Yeah, 20 unanswered questions still.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for coming and telling us the backside of the stories.
Thank you guys for having me. It was a lot of fun.
This is great.
So awesome.
All right. Thanks, guys. Take care.
See you
See you
later.
next time.